the question really is that, well, the theories run abound. One of them doing the rounds is that maybe the rail budget was a bit of a test to figure out what kind of reaction comes in from allies and opposition, and now that it is out and the reaction has been so stiff, that might be difficult for the finance minister to go ahead and take some steps, maybe a diesel price rise or so on and so forth, because there will be a lot of opposition that would come about from allies alike.
I don't buy that conspiracy theory of what's happened in the rail budget being linked to what was planned in the general budget. On the petroleum product hike, that does not necessarily have to happen through the budget. In fact, the expectation was that it would be done after the results of the state elections were out and before the budget. Yes, indeed, there is a case that because of the kind of resistance that has happened as a result of the railway budget and also as a result of the outcome of the state elections, it is very unlikely that the petroleum product prices are going to be hiked. But so far as the general budget is concerned, I think that has always been somewhat insulated from the railway budget part of it, because the overall constraints are completely different there. The overall constraints are that fiscal consolidation is extremely difficult, increasing revenue is difficult, and there are all kinds of reasons why expenditure is galloping. Now, those constraints are sort of independent, as I said, of the state election outcome.
Do you believe that some of the softer areas could see some positive announcements, something that would please probably the reformists as well? I mean, there could be some tinkering or some mention of FDI in aviation. There could be some mention of the stance that they would take towards maybe FDI in retail. I mean, these are not really steps that would probably find too much of opposition. Maybe leave retail aside, but a couple of other softer issues. Does he have the room to do that?
Oh, he certainly has the room to make the announcements, but that's completely irrelevant, because the critical part is not whether the announcements are made, but whether they're implemented. But given the style of the present finance minister, I don't expect the budget tomorrow to have all of those things. The budget tomorrow is going to concentrate on the crux of the budget, which, as both of us have said, are revenue and expenditure. I am certain he will try to bring down the fiscal deficit as a share of GDP to a somewhat more respectable figure of about 5%. And the challenge there will be, particularly because disinvestment figures are not going to be remarkably high, the challenge there will be to what extent can he control the subsidy bill, and to what extent can he under budget, perhaps deliberately, for the food security bill.
Bibek, how would you interface the political pressure that there is right now on the finance minister to really deliver something that can change the game, so to speak, for the government's position at the centre? In view of what the tone he adopts and also the direction of growth that he kind of gives out, how do you think he would perhaps balance the political pressure with the pressure that the economy is facing right now?
I think one is expecting too much from this budget. And there is wide speculation, of course, that this is going to be Pranab Mukherjee's last budget, and therefore one would like him to leave with a big bang. I don't think this was ever expected to be a big bang budget. As I said, that 5% is probably doable, and if he can do that 5%, I think he will be perfectly happy, because he does recognize that the problem of targeting subsidies is a massive one. Nandan Nilekani isn't going to come along and solve that problem. And particularly food and fertilizer subsidies have increased enormously. One can do a little bit on fertilizer, but one can't do very much dramatically on food subsidies, where the political compulsions become important, not outside the Congress and with the allies, but within the Congress, and petroleum products, where I think the political economy kicks in much more, because it becomes much more difficult now to move to sort of so-called market-determined prices for some of those petroleum products.
So what about foreign participation? Because that's the other big talking point. There's been disappointment on FDI and retail, FDI and aviation.
I am inclined to think that if these things happen, they will probably happen outside the budget. Because, again, as I said earlier, that we stand up and clap and applaud because these things are announced in the budget and then they never materialize. There have been finance ministers whose styles have been these very flashy styles. You announce big things which don't happen. This particular finance minister style is not that. I'm not saying these things might not happen, but I don't think there's been enough of consensus building with the allies. He will concentrate much more on the nitty-gritty. He will focus quite a bit on the DTC because the GST is clearly, it has been postponed. It can't possibly happen now. It's been postponed by at least a couple of years. He will do quite a bit on the DTC and on tinkering around with the DTC.